would like to show us some support, please buy us a coffee. We have 6,000 members in our community. So if everybody just donated €1, that would be a great contribution and would allow us to function in the future and pay our organizational costs. And again, just to emphasize, none of us takes any money out of Ali. So we are all volunteers. So all the money that we fundraise goes to operational costs. So this is my name. If you would like to look for me personally on LinkedIn, it's Joanna. This is my QR code leading to my page on LinkedIn. Very briefly, a bit about me, about myself. So you can see a few badges here. This is just sample of the badges. I'm qualified. I have many certification qualifications. This is only a sample to give you a little bit of picture who I am. So what I would like to focus on today is that I am co-organizer of Agile Lean Island community, which was started in 2015. So we have 10 years birthday this year, in October to be specific. And we recently rename ourselves to Ali Labs because, as you are probably aware, the market is changing and shifting. And we decided the AI, there's lots of focus on AI. AI, we feel naturally falls under remit of agile and lean activities. So that's why we kind of rename to Ali Labs, because at this point we are doing lots of AI experiments, and we would like to encourage you to get engaged with us. We are currently looking for some volunteers to run some AI experiments with us. So you can be experienced and run those experiments, lead those experiments, and others learning from you. Or you might not know anything about AI, but you want to learn from others, and also you are very welcome to join us. So if you would have any interest in running, joining our AI hub, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be very happy to put you in contact with relevant experimentation groups. At the moment, what we are doing, we started with hypothesis of one-person company. So proving you can run a company, with just AI, with just one person. We already proven it's impossible. You still need a team. But now we are doing some other experiments, very interesting experiments. So we have a social media manager, for example. We also, AI powered, of course. We have, at the moment, Aliana, who is our customer service friend. So she responds, because coming to the conference, we are getting loads of the same queries and questions, and we are overwhelmed with amount of queries. So Aliana will be responding to those queries. So we already have an agent who scans through email. It's fed with all the information about the conference, and will be drafting the email to you, to our audience, and we just need to read the email and then send it. So we didn't automate it till the end. Aliana doesn't send any emails. It prepares a draft for us. We read it and then send it. And just why am I saying that? Because I would like to welcome you and encourage you to get engaged with us, but also I decided to, because we are doing lots of AI experiments, I decided to see, to make sure that we stay compliant with the regulations. So I start looking at the regulation to understand it. And then I find it very interesting. So I thought, okay, let's make it, talk about it and help other people to understand, so they understand how to be compliant and what they need to pay attention to. So just starting, from the basics, we will talk what AI and machine learning is about very briefly, just very high level, and then more about the AI Act. And just something to keep in mind, that European Commission actually acknowledges that AI is very useful. It's really, really can speed up different processes and learning, and can help us to expand rapidly. But it also bringing many opportunities, it also brings lots of challenges. And the EU AI Act, its focus on protecting us and making sure that those challenges, we are aware of those challenges, and there's a conscious approach to how to use AI to be, morally right and ethically okay. And just to emphasize that European Union, Commission, people who look at the AI matters, they really acknowledge that there are significant risks linked to usage of AI, and the penalties and fines allocated, linked to non-compliance are quite heavy. So they are even heavier than for GDPR non-compliance. So there is a focus on doing it right. Let's use the tools and technology that is available, but let's make sure we do it in the right way. And the fines which are mentioned in the legislation are up to 35 million euro or up to 7% of a global turnover of the company. So they are heavy fines for non-compliance. And we'll a little bit talk in a few minutes about timelines as well, so you understand the timelines of what needs to happen. So just before we start to understand a little bit about what AI is. So very plain English, oversimplifying, but basically, AI is, when we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, we basically talked about computers and machines which are generated in a way they copy us humans. So they think, learn, and make decisions like people. And then when we look at large language models, it's just a type of AI. And that's, when they good at understanding and using words. So they read loads of books, website articles, they gather the data, and now they are really good in understanding that content. And so, like oversimplifying, we can say that AI is like the whole brain, and LLM is just like a part of it, which is really good for talking and reading. And when you think about AI, so actually we will talk about it in connection with this slide, because even though AI became very popular these days, actually we have a decades, it's not even not one decade, a decades of different activities leading to what we have now. So the beginnings of AI are at the beginnings of 50s. And you could see, like, we've been using AI for a very long time without actually realizing that that's AI. So, for example, I'm sure that any who is watching Netflix, you notice that you are getting recommendations. Based on movies that you watched, we recommend that you look at those movies. So that proposal is basically based, AI gathered the data on you, understood what you like, what you don't like, and now is making suggestions on, they build basically your kind of profile, and now they are make suggestions based on your history. Same thing with Spotify. We've been using Spotify recommendations for very, very long time. So even though AI is exploding now, we've been using it for a very, very long time. And a little bit about history of EU Act itself. And probably it's worth noticing that EU AI Act is the first comprehensive legal framework for AI-related matters. So it's many countries are looking at AI related challenges and opportunities, but EU Act was actually the first one to look at put some structure into it. And the goal of it is to ensure that AI systems used in EU are safe, transparent, ethical, and respect fundamental rights. So basically, the whole purpose of EU AI Act is to make sure that we are protected. We, as user consumers, are protected. And one things to I didn't have it earlier, but maybe one note to clarify. So what are AI systems, and what's the difference between AI system versus a generative AI? So generative AI is basically like ChatGPT, that you can use it for many things. You can do homework with it, you can do your financial turnover, you can do your social media. It's a wide, it's a broad use of the tool. AI system is more targeted. So it's AI powered, but it's for one job. So this is, again, very simplified view of it, but it helps you to understand what's about. And a little bit of timeline. So in 2018, the European Commission began exploring ethical AI. And then in 2021, it published the first draft of AI Act. And then there were further revisions. And final version was published. And again, when I say final version, we are talking final version of draft 1. So this is ongoing document. This is a live document, which will be enhanced all the time. AI is rapidly evolving now, and there will be new challenges, surfacing. And based on that, the Act will be changing, and it's created that way that it will be evolving with the technology. And then on March 2024, there was formal adoption of the Act. And then the Act is constructed with staggering enforcement timelines. So there's a gradual implementation to give organizations time to prepare and make sure they are compliant. And, the whole, this gradual implementation was planned between 2025 and 2026. However, we already know that some enforcements for example, generative AI were planned for August 2025, so only a few months ahead of us. But the body which is responsible for the Act is already behind the timeline, so we know it definitely won't be August 2025. Most likely it will be pushed to 2026. We don't know the exact dates yet. And then a small exercise. I would like you to take literally 3 minutes, and if you could look for yourself and try to match the role mentioned in the EU AI Act with the description of it. So basically you look one provider, and then you try to look for description that matches that role, which is A, B, C, D, E, and F. And if you could take three minutes for yourself and make a note, on paper or on phone, and then I will provide answers, but try to guess. I know that you don't have any background yet, but try to have a guess. And I'm setting up the timer now. Okay, and let's have a look at the answers. So the correct answers are, so who is a provider? 1F. So provider develops and places AI systems on the market. Who is deployer according to legislation? And that's 2E. And deployer are those who use AI systems. And who is operator according to legislation? And that's 3A. And operator is any of the above roles, and manufacturer. And then we have importer, so 4C. Oops, sorry. And that's, importer places an AI system on the market from outside of European Union. And then we have a distributor, that's 5D. Distributor, it's a link in a supply chain other than provider or important that makes the system available on the market. And then we have authorized representative, and authorized representative They accept a written mandate from a provider of an AI system or generative AI to perform on its behalf obligations under the regulations. Okay, and there are also 3 other roles mentioned in the legislation, and that's notified bodies. So notified bodies are independent organizations designed by European Union member states to assess the conformity of certain high-risk AI systems before they are placed on the market. They conduct audits and evaluations to ensure compliance with the regulations requirements. There is also role market surveillance authorities, and they are national authorities which are responsible for monitoring and enforcing the regulation, and they have the powers to investigate non-compliance, order corrective actions, and impose penalties. Excuse me. And then we have a third additional role, European Artificial Intelligence Office, and that's an European Union level body established to facilitate the implementation of the AI Act, support cooperation among member states, and provide guidance on the regulation's application. These roles are designed to ensure that AI systems entering and operating within European Union market are safe, transparent, and respect fundamental rights. And each stakeholder has a specific obligation to maintain the integrity and trustworthiness of AI technologies. So this is, so you understand some concepts of the how the roles and responsibilities according to the Act. And now I'm very, actually, no, we have time for it. So let's do an exercise. Sorry, let's go back. I stop sharing, give me a second because I want to use another application. Let's do an exercise. I would like you to help me build the prompt so we get an image of a clock, traditional clock, so it's not a digital clock, which shows 6:35 p.m. Who can help me to create, if you could unmute yourself and help me to build a prompt. "6:35 p.m. We want to be shown on the clock. So maybe I will create a traditional round face clock showing 18:35. Is there anything else? Create an image. Sorry, create an image of. Okay. Anybody would like to amend this prompt anyway? All in agreement gives me thumbs up if you are in agreement.
I would also add the context, something like as a, I don't know, watchmaker or clockmaker.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else would like to add anything to it?
Maybe add something about the audience, like that's easy to read for children or people with impaired vision or something to order of magnitude of the scale of the visibility.
Perfect. Okay. And anything else?
Maybe also the settings, like is it above the clouds or is it flying, something like that, to animate it a little bit.
Okay. Can we do it in the second iteration?
Okay.
Will we do animation? Okay, in second iteration. So anything in our MVP. This is our literary MVP. We want a clock showing 6:35. Anything else to add here to this clock so we get 6:35 on the clock? Can I run the prompt?
No, the question is who I am, why I would like to have this clock, and who are the customers who use it.
Okay, so give me the prompt.
I'm a consultant.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, the customers are, I don't know, just to invent something.
Let's do
Okay.
children. Let's the customers are children because it
Okay.
Yeah.
fits the rest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what would they would like to do with it?
Okay.
So what are the reason?
We want to teach them reading classical clocks.
Yeah, or to learn read the clock. Yeah.
Okay. So let's run this prompt. Let's see what we'll get. Oh, doesn't look like what we asked for, does it? Okay, so I'm very conscious of the time, so we don't have time to run the following iterations. However, I would encourage you to try yourself. Sorry, the other way. So why we did this exercise, and feel free to run it yourself. No matter how many iterations you run, I didn't manage yet to get 6:35 on the clock. As well, I haven't managed yet to get full glass of red wine. So those are like, exercises I'm using, and I'm using that since February. And to be honest with you, I think lots of people must be using the I don't know, the exercise with red glass, the red wine, because yesterday I was running similar workshop and we managed actually to get nearly full, but it was still not full. So what's happening? 6:35 doesn't look visually appealing. So any clocks, images, they will have either 10 to 2 or 10 past 10, because symmetry is appealing, it's aesthetical. So anybody who is using, selling watches, producing watches, and so on, produce the images in a symmetry, which is that way. And sometimes what you said, maybe, towards half past, 10 or that way, but it just visually appealing to the eye. So there is not enough data to train AI to produce image of 6:35. And the similar reasons, we never pour glass full. So there is not enough data to teach AI to create an image of glass top absolutely full till the brim. So that's why AI at the moment is still not able to create those images. And why we did this exercise? First of all, to help you realize two things, which are very important. First of all, you cannot trust everything what you get from AI, because the output of what you're getting from AI is only as good as input, so data it was trained on. So it's still your responsibility. You can use AI for your advantage to speed up the work, but it's still your responsibility to ensure it's factually accurate. So lesson number one, do not blindly trust. It's still your responsibility to check if this is okay and factually correct. Second of all, it's also be conscious of the bias. So the answer might seem right, but it's up to you to establish, is it right? If data which was used for train AI models wasn't comprehensive, wasn't good enough, then you will have a bias in the answer, which might be difficult to spot. So just, the purpose of this exercise was for you to realize the two things. Responsibility in both cases lies with human to, first of all, establish, is it factual? The information you're getting, is it factual? Second of all, is it biased, or is actually true objective information? And so EU Act, the regulators want us to approach AI through, when we look at the risk associated, we need to look at, which category, risk category AI places itself in. And so AI regulation is basically risk-based. So whatever tool you're using, you have to think, okay, which category is it placing in? So for example, minimal risk. Here we just apply code of conduct. So there are different tools like, recommendation, Netflix recommendation, Spotify's recommendation. And actually, you know what, we can talk about examples in a few seconds on the next slide, but here let's talk about we have 4 groups mentioned by AI Act. So there will be minimal risk, there will be limited risk, there will be high risks, and unacceptable risks, so prohibited AI. And different response will be associated with each group. So for example, in minimal risk, recommended is just to have a code of conduct. In the limited risk group, we want to full transparency so that our clients and users do realize it. We are using AI. So for example, it's not okay to have a sales agent AI cloning you and customers thinking they are talking to you. It's okay to use it, but you have to be transparent with your clients and they need to be aware that you are using an AI agent for those conversations. And then in high risk, we need to have the approach would be a conformity assessment. And then we have a group with prohibited AI tools. So how that looks, so when we look at different tools, so for example, minimal risk tools, so it would be like spell checks, grammar suggestions, recommendations, Netflix, Spotify recommendations, maybe email filter. So there is a very, even if something goes wrong, it's very, the risk is rather low. So if you get recommendation for a movie that they get it wrong, you will just watch the movie you don't like. If the email is filtered incorrectly, the high priority email might be lost, they will email you again. There is some risk, but it's a minimal risk. The second group would be that do not pose, risks which do not pose substantial threats, like chatbot, voice assistants, resume screening, deep fakes, emotion recognition systems. It's ethically probably and morally not okay to be using AI agents without notifying your clients. Nobody wants to, have emotional analysis done on them without their knowledge or consent. So you have to let your customers know they are interacting with AI tools. But there is no more than that, just full transparency. And I think you see in the news, there's lots of at the moment being said about tools used for CV screening. And again, at this point, there is no enforcement. So, it would be nice to have for companies to being transparent about it. They are using those kind of tools, but there is at the moment no legal obligation on them until actually enforcement timelines are put in place. So in a few months, we'll see if somebody uses a resume screening tool for looking at your CV during the job application process, they will have to notify you about it. At the moment, it's still not happening. And then we have risks which are in the high category group. And the approach here, it's conformity assessment, which we will talk about in a few minutes, because there is a direct impact on human lives, rights, or safety in that group. So for example, medical diagnosis. Yes, we can use AI for doing medical diagnosis, but consequences of getting it right is quite significant. Self-driving cars are already out there and they're brilliant, but if something goes wrong, the consequences are quite impactful. The same, regarding the credit scoring tools and loan applications and things like that. If something goes wrong, people might be they pose some significant risk because, for example, some group of people can be excluded for the opportunities. And also, they can be used by law enforcement and predictive policing. And then the last group is the tools which are posing irreversible harm and violate fundamental rights. And we absolutely cannot be using them. And they are, for example, social scoring system, facial recognition, dark patterns, AI, and manipulation. And the Act actually, there is a provision there for special use cases. So, for example, if there is a suspicion of the act of terrorism, the special forces still can use facial recognition. But there are, some special circumstances when AI tools can be used. In general, they are banned, and they are definitely banned for majority of organizations and users. So now about high risk group, and there is the proposed approach is conformity assessment. And what does it mean? So it's mandatory assessment which needs to be done before the high-risk systems are available to users or are used in the market we are talking here about EU market. It's an ongoing process, so as technology is changing, it's not enough to do conformity assessment once and say, okay, it's done. This responsibility is on you to make sure if you're using tools from a high-risk group, this is an exercise which has to be on ongoing basis. This is ongoing process. To make sure that we are treating people fairly and it's ethically okay, and so on and so on. It can be done via internal or external audit. However, some very high-risk AI tools will require external audits. And you might see, I would imagine that soon you will see you already can see them, that there are some voluntary certifications. So, voluntary certification might work as give you credibility, and, it gives users that peace of mind. Somebody look at it, it's accredited and so on. However, it's worth noticing that accrediting bodies will have the power to give those certificates only within the area of expertise. So if you are approved to certified in one field, you cannot do certification in another field. And there will be organizations, or I already, encounter some voluntary certifications. So some organizations are approved to give certification in this field, but they are giving voluntary certification in another field. Again, it means nothing in eyes of law. It only can give you credibility in eyes of client, but something, to keep in mind. And that's responsibility. Conformity assessment is responsibility of the provider. And the purpose of it is to ensure that quality data is used to train, validate, and test AI systems. And data sets needs to be relevant, representative, free of error, and complete, because we want to avoid bias. We want to avoid manipulating people in one perspective and so on. And then they meet the detailed technical documentation for record keeping and documenting that, how they were trained, what's happened, how they function, and so on. There's a mandate of transparency. So people need to understand that they are interacting with AI tools and the consequences and impact and how to interact with them and so on. And there's obligation of human oversight. So you cannot transfer responsibility to AI. So you cannot say, AI told me it's fine. There is still human oversight required. So accountability is on individual human beings for saying, yes, I validated, this is okay. And again, this is only for the high risk group. And then when we look at the timelines, so as I mentioned again, there is a staggered enforcement timeline. So this is this approach of making sure that organizations are not put on, and on pressure overly put on pressure, and they have time to become compliant and make sure that everything what they need to do is put in place. So the AI Act, itself was announced in August 2024. And then from February, the prohibited AI systems were meant to be removed or discontinued. And also that companies meant to start making sure that their staff is AI literate. And we talk about AI literacy, we are talking about dual track. So we want to make sure that staff is well aware of what's okay, what's not okay to do, that these risk groups and so on, something what we are doing now to make sure they are just conscious AI users. And the other part of AI literacy is competence, how to use AI, competence. Apologies if I don't pronounce it correctly, but basically how to use AI. But the main focus is on knowing, being conscious AI user, knowing what's okay, what's not okay, understanding the risks associated with it, and so on. And then since May, we have code of practice, which meant to be established to guide compliance. And from what I know, I think that European Commission is behind on that. So as I mentioned, that the timelines will be shifting, but the new timelines haven't been announced yet from what I know. And then we have from August this year, the generative AI models are meant to be compliant with AI obligations. Again, timelines are shifting. We don't know yet till when, but they are definitely shifting. And then also, AI Act comes with annexes, and different industries, different operations come in different annexes. So in August 2026, the high-risk AI system from Annex 3 meant to be compliant, and then a year later, the Annex 1 meant to, all the operations, all the industries within Annex 1 meant to be compliant. So again, there was a, they are staggered across many years to make sure nobody's under pressure. There's a time to do it right. And then in terms of a little bit about training and continuous learning. So again, this is an ongoing process. AI and technology is evolving very rapidly at the moment. So it's not something we can do once and say to people, okay, it's done. And so periodic refresher trainings will be required. There's also detailed requirements. So if we ask employees to use some tools, there has to be proper training put in place and proper how-to training provided. And again, this is part of developing, skills through staff. But again, this is also applicable to us, like SMEs, because it's not like we cannot say, oh, I read it. It's like, the legislation will be changing and evolving, and the obligations on us to stay up to date and making sure that periodically we review it to make sure we are compliant and we didn't miss something what changed. I had one more exercise, but we won't have time, so I will just skip through it. But basically, the exercise was that you look at your operations, what you do, even as a solopreneur, and what AI tools you are using, and then group them, map them to different risk categories, so you can understand if there is anything for you to do there. And then if you like how you can put a governance framework for yourself. So make sure, like this is an example, you can have completely different framework for yourself, but that's just to give you some idea. So for example, you can, decide that I will be fully transparent with my clients. Everybody will know when I'm using AI tool. And then even until, before this is enforced by the law, obviously you have to make sure EU AI Act is EU AI Act, but you still need to stay compliant with Copyright, Act, with GDPR, so data privacy, and so on, so on. So there is more to look into it. So whatever you're looking whatever you're doing, just thinking, am I in a breach of GDPR? Am I in a breach of copyrights here? And I think those are some things which are still not fully regulated. But basically, you might use AI for writing your book, but you cannot claim copyrights on that because that's not your work, okay? So just, being mindful of those things. And then you might decide, okay, I like what we decided with Ali. So Aliana drafts our emails, but we decided to still keep the human control and oversight over it. So each email is read before it's sent to client. And then accountability is on you. So you cannot transfer accountability on a tool. And then, fair application. So whenever you're getting results, checking factually, is that right, what I'm getting here? And questioning yourself, is it biased information? To making sure you are spreading the correct knowledge and correct information. And that's pretty much it. And I'm very conscious of the time and I want to be respectful of your time. So should it happen that you have some questions, please either reach to me or reach to Ali or type the question here in the chat and we'll make sure that all the questions are answered via our newsletter. And thanks very much for your time. And I hope it was useful. Would like to show us some support, please buy us a coffee. We have 6,000 members in our community. So if everybody just donated €1, that would be a great contribution and would allow us to function in the future and pay our organizational costs. And again, just to emphasize, none of us takes any money out of Ali. So we are all volunteers. So all the money that we fundraise goes to operational costs.